This isn't theoretical. This is a wound in our defense system that is growing larger every single year. So, the big question, the trillion-dollar question. Are we in the early stages of a flip? Scientists are divided. Some say this is just an excursion, a temporary glitch where the field gets weak and messy for a few thousand years and then snaps back to normal. The last time this happened was the Lachon excursion, about 41,000 years ago. Neanderthals were around for that. They survived. But what if it's the real deal? What if this is the start of a full reversal? Forget the Hollywood movies. The ground won't crack open. The sky won't turn to fire. The reality is much slower and much stranger. A reversal is not instant. The field doesn't just click off and on. It takes time. Estimates range from a few thousand years to maybe 12,000 years. It is a slow-motion transition. During this time, the magnetic field would get extremely weak, maybe dropping to 10% of its current strength. And it would get messy. The simple north and south dipole would shatter. We could end up with 4 poles at once: a north pole over the Amazon, another one over India, a south pole in Canada, another one in Antarctica. If you held a compass during a reversal, the needle wouldn't know what to do. It would drift aimlessly. Navigation as we know it would be impossible. The doomsday prophets will tell you that this weak field means mass extinction. They say the radiation will kill us all. But the science says, no. Life is resilient. We have been here for millions of years. Our ancestors survived the Lachon excursion. The fossil record shows absolutely no link between magnetic reversals and mass extinctions. Why? Because the magnetic field is just our first line of defense. Our main defense is the atmosphere. That thick blanket of air you're breathing right now is incredibly good at absorbing radiation. Even if the magnetic shield drops to 0, the air would stop the deadly particles from reaching the ground. You wouldn't be fried instantly. So biologically, we are fine. Humans will survive. But civilization? That is a very different story. See, our ancestors didn't have electricity. They didn't have satellites. They didn't have global supply chains dependent on GPS timing signals. We have built a world that is uniquely vulnerable to space weather. We have built a glass house, and we are waiting for a stone. If the magnetic field weakens to 10%, our satellites are sitting ducks. They would be exposed to raw solar storms. We could lose our entire orbital infrastructure. No GPS, no satellite banking transfers, no weather monitoring. But the real nightmare is on the ground. Without a strong magnetic shield, a major solar storm, a coronal mass ejection, would smash into the Earth with terrifying force. It wouldn't hurt your body, but it would wreak havoc on long metal wires. It would induce massive electrical currents in our power grids. Transformers would overheat and melt. Power stations would blow. In 1989, a moderate solar storm knocked out the power in Quebec for 9 hours. But in a reversal scenario, we are talking about global blackouts that could last weeks, months, or even years. Imagine a world where the lights go out and don't come back on. No refrigeration, no water pumps, no internet. That is the real threat of a magnetic reversal. It's not a biological apocalypse, it's a technological silence. So where does that leave us? The Earth is changing. The poles are moving. The shield is weakening. We can't stop it. We can't fix the core. This is a cycle that is bigger than us, older than us, and indifferent to us. But we have one advantage the dinosaurs didn't have. We can see it coming. This isn't an asteroid appearing out of the dark. This is a slow-motion event. We have decades, maybe centuries to prepare, to harden our power grids, to design satellites that can survive the radiation, to build navigation systems that don't need a magnetic north. The magnetic reversal is a reminder. We think we are masters of this planet, but we are really just passengers on a very active, very violent rock. The shield is thinning. The engine is shifting. And for the first time in human history, we have to figure out how to keep the lights on when the planet decides to turn them off. You would think that falling towards the sun would be easy. Gravity is pulling you in. It's the biggest object in the solar system. It feels like you should just be able to let go of Earth and drift right into the center. But here is the counterintuitive, maddening truth of orbital mechanics. It is actually harder to reach Mercury, the closest planet to the Sun, than it is to leave the solar system entirely. To get to Pluto, you just need speed. To get to Mercury, you need to cancel speed. And in the early 1970s, That mathematical reality was a wall that NASA couldn't climb over. We didn't have a rocket powerful enough to carry the fuel needed to slam on the brakes once we got there. Mercury was effectively locked away behind a barrier of physics. Until one mission changed everything. This is the story of Mariner 10. It is the story of a spacecraft with less computing power than a musical greeting card, sent on a suicide mission to the center of the solar system. And to get there, it didn't use brute force. It used a trick. A cosmic bank heist where we stole energy from one planet to unlock the secrets of another. To understand why this mission was impossible on paper, you have to look at where we are right now. You are standing on a planet that is moving. Earth is tearing through space around the sun at about 67,000 miles per hour. That orbital speed is what keeps us from falling into the sun. If you launch a rocket, it keeps that sideways speed. So if you want to visit Mercury, you can't just aim at the sun. You have to kill that sideways velocity. You have to scrub off tens of thousands of miles per hour of speed so that gravity can take over and pull you inward. In the world of rocketry, slowing down is expensive. It requires massive amounts of chemical fuel. In 1973, to send a probe to Mercury and slow it down enough to enter orbit would have required a Saturn V rocket, the same behemoth we used to send humans to the moon. But the Apollo era was ending. Budgets were being slashed. NASA didn't have a spare Saturn V lying around for a robotic mission. They had the smaller, cheaper Atlas Centaur rocket. And the math said the Atlas just couldn't do it. It was like trying to drive a minivan up Mount Everest. The engineers at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory were stuck. They had a destination, but no way to get there. The solution didn't come from better fuel or lighter materials. It came from a radical shift in thinking. For years, mathematicians had theorized about something called a gravity assist. The idea is elegant. You fly a spacecraft close to a planet, but you don't land. You dip into its gravity well. As you swing around the planet, you steal a tiny fraction of its orbital momentum. The planet slows down by an unnoticeable amount, but your tiny spacecraft gets catapulted. Usually, we think of this as a way to speed up, like the Voyager probes using Jupiter to fling themselves out of the solar system. But the engineers realized the math worked both ways. You could use a gravity assist to hit the brakes. If they aimed Mariner 10 to fly in front of Venus in its orbit, Venus's gravity would tug backward on the probe, slowing it down just enough to drop it towards the sun, right into the path of Mercury. It was a 2-for-1 sail. Visit Venus, use it as a brake, and then fall towards Mercury. But there was a catch. To make this work, the navigation had to be perfect. And I mean perfect. They had to launch from Earth, fly millions of miles to Venus, and hit a specific keyhole in space that was only 250 miles wide. If they missed that window by even a tiny margin, the angle would be wrong, the braking maneuver would fail, and Mariner 10 would be lost to the solar glare forever. And just to make things even more complicated, an Italian mathematician named Giuseppe Bepi Colombo looked at the numbers and realized something incredible. He saw a rhythm in the chaos. He calculated that if they hit that keyhole exactly right, the new orbit of Mariner 10 would take exactly 176 days. Why does that number matter? Because that is exactly twice the time it takes Mercury to orbit the sun. It was a perfect resonance. If they nailed the navigation, Mariner 10 wouldn't just fly by Mercury once. The spacecraft and the planet would meet at the same spot in space, over and over again.